Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Women in Technology speaker series. I'm delighted today to be interviewing Cliodhna Scanaill, who is a manager of a software team at Movidius Intel. And I'm particularly excited about this week's interview because I was actually lucky enough to intern on Cliodhna's abstraction layer team at Movidius in 2019. So yeah, good bit ago, but Cliodhna has spanned numerous roles at Intel, so I'm sure has lots to share with us as a passionate woman in technology. And additionally, she is a committee member of CWIT, so might tell us a bit about what that role entails later on. But yeah, firstly, Cliodhna, if you'd just like to maybe introduce yourself and give a brief background overview to the listeners, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. Really nice to see you again, Molly. It's yeah, I can't believe 2019. So I suppose I'll do the full history lesson. I got a degree in computer engineering in UL, and my final year project was about remote mobility monitoring with old people. So text messaging, if somebody's activity levels were below a certain threshold, it's looking back in hindsight when everyone has a Fitbit, it's kind of a bit embarrassing, but we were doing this stuff way back then. I was offered a PhD to continue that work. So I spent a further 4 years in Movidius very much in UL, getting a PhD in biomedical electronics. At the end of that, to be honest, I didn't think there'd be anyone doing biomed and I'd have to go back to my base degree. But Intel had literally started a digital health research team in Ireland. So joined them for, an 11-month internship, which turned into a 5-year job. And I ended up researching falls in old people, and it was just fascinating. I loved it. We were developing tech that could be used in the clinic, at home, learning all about the different types of sensors, different measures, all that. I was delighted. But Intel decided to get out of that research area, and I just moved to a different part of Intel that was doing Internet of Things. So theoretically, it was the same kind of work. It was using sensors, deriving measurements, and trying to, gain some understanding from long-term trends. Excuse me, I'm just going to sneeze. But we were doing smart cities. So we're trying to understand if we put temperature sensors, pollution sensors all over the city, can we gain kind of finer grained knowledge than having one huge massive sensor that costs a significant amount of money in one place in that city? We're learning kind of how to maintain them. It's really easy to do a one-off cheap sensor. But when you put those one-off cheap sensors up on a lamppost, that thing better stay alive, or it's like e-waste stuck to a lamppost. So that was really interesting. We kind of think plug and play sensing, maintainability, scalability, all that type of stuff. It's really interesting, although it was a different domain. From there, I kind of moved back slightly to biomed. I went into the Wearables team. Intel was developing a wearable sensor, but 3 months later, Intel got out of that. But I joined Movidius, and that's where I met Molly. So Movidius is a really fascinating company. It's an Irish startup. And what they do is they do computer vision at the edge. So at the edge means, very low power, and you do the analysis where it's generated. So if you think of something like a toll booth, instead of like taking video and streaming it to a server in the cloud to figure out what the license plate is, you have that chip embedded in the camera, and you have a very smart chip that's trying to figure out what the license plate is and only sending that tiny bit of data to a server. So much cheaper. You're not transmitting rubbish. It's really low power, and that's the power of that Movidius chip. So I had to learn all about artificial intelligence, computer vision, whole new hardware, working with teams in Romania. It was just really interesting company. And I've been there ever since.
So what year did you join Movidius in? Do you remind me, how long have you been in Movidius
Oh
for?
goodness, I think it was 2019 or 2018, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, in Movidius, I became a manager of the team that develops the software interfaces to the chip, because we want people to be able to program our chip very easily. It's a complex chip. So that was a whole other level of learning, how to manage a project, manage people, all of that. But it's been really, really enjoyable. And then, yeah, Molly, you joined us as an intern for summer as a WIT scholar. I love the WIT scholar program that we have in Intel. It's bringing in females in technology, to get the experience of what it's like to work in a company, because it's a very abstract concept when you're in college. And I know from my internship, when I went back to college after, it's like, I know why I'm studying this now. It all makes sense.
Yeah, everything suddenly
It's great
becomes
to have you.
relevant. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was an amazing overview. Thank you for sharing all the little insights. If we could just go back to the very start
Yeah.
there, because
Cool.
obviously a lot of our listeners would be undergrads, and obviously I'm an engineering student myself, so it might be relevant. But you studied computer engineering at UL. Do you want to tell us a bit maybe about your experience at college? If there's anything particular that you remember about being a female in STEM that might stand out to you, or just your experience as a whole? How did you find it?
Absolutely. So computer engineering was really, really good course for me. I had originally planned to do medicine, veterinary, and a backup, which was teaching. And one of my friends had mentioned she was going to do computers. I was like, I actually really like computers. I'm going to think of this. So in the change of mind form, it was like computer engineering, electronic composites. And my memory of my very first day in college was we did kind of orientation, and I was sitting with a group of girls, and we all went, I like maths. I like maths too. What? And it was suddenly like, it was okay to admit you like maths after years of almost hiding that you like maths because it's too nerdy. Um, so our course, computer electronic, were pretty much the same course for about 2.5 years. We had the vast majority of subjects together. And between the two, we had 120 people, 25 females, which was like exceptional. And we just had some like really nice groups, very helpful. I didn't feel, I suppose, that being a female engineer was anything different. I'd kind of gone to a co-ed school, so it didn't really make a difference. And yeah, it was just great to meet people who all really enjoyed computers. What I did enjoy in fourth year was like after doing the same base course and we picked our final year subjects, how everyone went off into totally different things.
Yeah,
It's like,
I'm excited to see that next year, what everyone chooses, because we obviously have to do our dissertation in fifth year, and the fact that there's so many different strands that we can go into. We think we're studying this niche thing that's electronic engineering, and there's literally thousands of things to choose from for next year. But that's great that you had such a positive experience at undergrad level. And then, as you said earlier, you went on to complete a PhD, and also in UL. Do you want to tell us maybe did you always think that was something you were going to do, or what led to that decision? Would you have any advice for someone who's kind of going, should I be going into industry or should I be studying further? And then maybe if you want to tell us a bit about your publication, that could be interesting for listeners as well.
okay. Feedback. I kind of fell into it. I'll be honest. So when I was graduating in 2002, you can do the mental arithmetic. It was just at the end of the IT, or the start of the IT bubble bursting. So there weren't many industry jobs. And my final year supervisor just kind of said, would you like to do a PhD? And it wasn't something I'd considered, to be perfectly honest. I didn't know what a PhD was. But when I thought about it, it was like, wait a minute, I get to like study deep on something and take this project I really love and do it to, a better level, go test this with older people, generate real data. but I don't think I really knew what a PhD was. I probably thought it was like an extension of a final year project, and in many ways it was. It was it's really good, but I think a lot of what I learned from doing a PhD was learning how to learn. Like I'm very good at kind of digging deep into something now, and it's a PhD skill I learned. It's like, okay, what's all the information I need, gather together, and then try to filter out the rubbish I don't need, because you could keep looking around and trying to learn everything and just, razor focus. This is the only bit I need to know right now. That bit's interesting. Park it for a while. I'll get back to it. I learned a lot about writing and technical writing, and I was always quite good at, at English in my leaving cert. But I learned how to write technical papers, which was a totally different skill to me. I really enjoyed that, and I learned to give presentations, because a really big part of your PhD is showing your work and getting it kind of approved by your peers internationally. So I got to travel. I did an internship in France, which was just amazing. Like you read other people's journal papers going, oh, this person's a god. Oh my God, they know everything about my field. And then I got to work with this person, and it was like, oh my God, it's the person in the papers. So like, I had to go speak French for 3.5 months, which was terrifying. But I got to learn so much about their research methods. And yeah, really, it's the communication skills, the information dissemination skills, all of that was just, it was brilliant. It was really, really enjoyable. And it was, a lot of people, I would say, when you get to the end of your PhD, you hate it because you're so sick of that topic. And all your colleagues, all their projects are far more interesting and far more worthy, and yours is rubbish. But that's literally how everyone feels about their PhD by the end of it. But that's good too. I would highly recommend a PhD to anyone who really enjoyed their final year project, wants to go deeper, wants to travel. A master's is minimum now, and I think a PhD is a kind of a good step beyond a master's if that's what interests you.
Okay, that's definitely good advice that is relevant. I think people can take on board, because it's definitely a tough decision to know if that's something that you might like studying at college, but I feel like it is a different level of research and a completely different level of technical writing, as you described. Definitely something that probably seems daunting to a lot of people. But
the one thing I would say, Molly, just before you move, like a lot of us doing our PhDs, and we'd very, like there was a lab of us studying, it was a very like tight-knit group, is that it's not that you have to be an absolute genius. You just have to be, how would I say, stubborn enough to keep at it. I suppose it's a bit like doing applied maths in the leaving cert, everyone thinks that's like super, super complicated, higher than higher level maths. And it's not, it's just a different type of maths.
yeah.
And a PhD doesn't require you to be a genius, and don't write yourself off going, I'm not smart enough to do a PhD. It's not a kind of an intelligence thing. It's a resilience thing, a curiosity thing. So, a lot of people write themselves off from PhDs and jobs and stuff before they've ever figured out what it is. So if you're thinking about it, go talk to people, find out what they do, ask for advice. Like people are always willing to share.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And then, so you went into Intel originally in the biomedical sector of, I know you described a bit about that at the start. Was that actually relevant directly to the PhD you just completed, or was it a kind of different strand? Do you think you used the information that you'd researched, or kind of learn on the job? How did you decide,
It was directly relevant. And I couldn't believe it. It was like, I get to research old people and falling. And I've just done a PhD about measuring the mobility of old people and why they fall. I just like, you never get a job in your PhD, directly applied to your PhD. So I thought it was brilliant. And not only that, like the thing I loved about going into industrial research as opposed to academic was well, one, I was getting paid like a proper wage after being on like a student wage. But the other thing was Intel was a company that had money. So if I went to a hospital saying, hey, I want to do a research study, and I'm from Intel, they were like, cool, yep, what can we do? Let's help you. And Intel could afford to buy the equipment I needed. I just knew I could do better research with more money and more influence. And the fact that we're a big research team, you know, we collaborated with UCD, Trinity, UCG. You know, it was the biggest research study in the world at that time on aging. So it was really impactful and to be part of that
And you could
and
actually see the
getting all this
results
data.
coming to life. Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Amazing that you did get something so relevant. That, as you said, probably is so rare because they can be so niche. And I think that's one of the things that kind of scares people is that I'm spending 4 or 5 years and like it's a long time to invest if you're not
yeah,
certain, that there's going to be something afterwards. But no, definitely something to consider that there's other skills coming from a PhD and not just the information that you've studied. I think that's interesting
absolutely.
to kind of hear from your
Yeah.
point of view. But
It's like when I'm hiring people, Molly, like hiring people into the team, if I see a PhD or any type of research, I'm like, okay, so I know they have this skill, this skill, this skill, you know. I don't actually really look at their topic because it's very rare to find somebody who has a topic that you're hiring for.
mm,
But the fact that they have that learning skill or that persistence,
yeah,
that work ethic, you
mhm.
know, that's what an employer, or maybe I'm just one of those strange people hiring, but that's what I look for if I'm hiring a PhD.
No, that makes complete sense. This might be a hard now, tricky question, but just obviously you've been in, did you join Intel in 2012 then? Is that wrong? Okay, before that maybe.
No, when did I? God, I'm trying to think. 2002,
Early before.
2004, 2006, I think, or
Okay.
2007.
You've had
Yeah,
a lot of
long time.
would it be too tricky to ask then? I'm sure you've covered different roles, different jobs, different
Yeah.
projects. Is there one in particular, maybe project that stands out to you over all the years that was your favorite or that you maybe enjoyed the most, or particular role? Doesn't it?
Um, it's probably lazy to go back to the first one with the studying and researching with old people, just because I was just constantly learning. I was paired with a clinical doctor. So we worked, there was an ethos in the team we had, and it was Intel-led ethos that everything should be grounded in ethnographic research. And that meant like people-led, you embed yourself
Mm,
into their lives and understand what they need as opposed to asking them what they want.
mm,
So everything was ethnographically led. We had designers, we had engineers, we had older people and clinicians, and we designed everything as a group. So I learned so much from working with people who weren't engineers, and kind of learned that, the coolest tech isn't always the right answer. That's not always what you want. So I enjoyed that because it was a group of people who were all learning from each other all the time and pushing each other to be better. And we had a common purpose of we want to make the lives of older people better. So it worked really well. But it's probably easy to say I loved that because it was like the subject I'd studied in college. There was one of the jobs, I've done a few different roles in Movidius, but my very first task in Movidius, I was working with Microsoft, and Microsoft wanted to put our chip into Windows, and our chip had never been in Windows, and it was like, oh my gosh, okay, Microsoft haven't even announced this feature yet. So we were doing all this top secret learning, how to get stuff into Windows, and I was trying to learn what our chip did so I could work with Microsoft to get into their stuff, but I didn't know how Microsoft worked either. So it was this whole like learning and sharing what I learned with the next person and then learning from them. And I think the thing is when I'm learning something new and sharing what I've learned with people, that's when I'm happy. And the theme or topic of the project doesn't matter. So yeah, I've cheated. I've given you 2 answers.
No, that's a good answer. I think that's, a lot of people are the same, that like you're most passionate and you become most kind of, I suppose you work hardest when you enjoy what you're doing, and you enjoy what you're doing when you're learning new things. So maybe that's just the way I am as well, but I think a lot of people will be similar. Um, Now you're a manager of a software team, as we said, and therefore, is there anything, you can conclude as a manager that you think is really important? What are maybe, like, obviously aside from having to have the knowledge and the intelligence and the experience, is there any soft skills that you would kind of classify as the most important, for whether that's for someone coming out of college or just as a leader in general? What are the soft skills you'd kind of value the most? Kind of
Okay,
hard.
so this is again, this might be unique to me. So I played a lot of team sports as a kid. I did a lot of athletics, played a lot of football. So I really like how people work as a team. And from playing like that, I kind of understand team dynamics, that it's not always your superstar that will get you, to that will win that game. That superstar might be marked out of it someday. And it's the other people, the reliable fullback who will win you the match by stopping that goal. The one that's never been, that you don't think of as a superstar until your superstar is in trouble. So team dynamics I find really, really interesting. Attitude and collaboration. So when I hire, when I'm interviewing, I look at, yes, somebody's got the baseline skills, because they wouldn't even get to interview without the baseline skills. But after that, it's collaboration. Because, and I see it, Molly, you probably remember from our team, if somebody's stuck, there's somebody over their desk helping them.
Yeah.
And, they're helping because they want to help. And then they're also helping in a way because they know they'll get the help back. And I set up a team like that because when we're all under pressure and work is hard, we're all there for each other. Like 2 hours ago, we had an online game of Pictionary, just because we've had a tough week and we just wanted to laugh at each other's like ridiculously bad drawing skills. And that's, we could have a load of people who are amazing individuals, but amazing individuals, I'm going to say, when things go wrong, don't pull together. I think Simon Sinek has a really good story about, Navy SEALs and who the Navy SEALs would hire, and it's not the top performer, it's the person who'll be there for you. So that would be the soft skill I go for. Collaboration. I think you can learn technical. I can train you technically. I can't train your personality, if you get me. Yeah. And then the other one is just curiosity and being analytical, not being afraid to ask, for help, or to ask. I think, Molly, this, the stupid question. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of the stupid question, because there is no stupid question. So yeah, they're kind of the things I look for, and that would be the advice I'd give to someone.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that was really, I think, honest words that like people can just take on board like immediately. It's not something that is further down the line. That's kind of relevant to college life as well. Whenever we group projects, I feel like they're definitely the most important things for successful team projects, even like in our current situations. But yes,
in your team projects, Molly, do you pick your teams, or are they allocated for you?
It's a bit of both. Mostly now, I found the later years, they kind of let us choose them more. I think in first and second year, there was more assigned teams. And I don't know if that was just kind of people didn't know each other as much, or that's maybe on purpose by them. But yeah, we definitely have more choice now, and people probably fall into natural kind of groupings. So it's never a big issue. But yeah, and there definitely be, sometimes we have to be in pairs, and sometimes you have to be in a team of 4 or 5. So there's completely different dynamics depending on the task. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, always kind of starting off a project or a team setting, kind of figuring out what are the different views, what are the different people we're dealing with, like the different characters. Yeah, it is something I love, kind of the first part of a project isn't actually the project. It's kind of trying to figure out how everyone operates and like how people are going to take on different roles. But yeah, so quickly then, I don't want to keep you
Oh
here,
yeah, don't worry.
but just quickly about Connecting Women in Tech, or CWIT, which I
Yeah.
mentioned. Just for anyone who doesn't know, it's a network of about 20 Irish-based tech companies, I believe.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a bit about kind of the motivation behind this organization, or what your role entails as a committee member?
Yeah. So I was committee member. I stepped back for a while. I'm covering maternity leave at the moment. So I'm kind of in and out. But Connecting Women in Technology is an initiative to connect multinational technology companies that are based in Ireland. So they have to be over a certain size. What they do is they have two things they want to do. The first one is education, and the second is media and outreach and education. They partner with people like Science Foundation Ireland to commission research. They kind of lobby the government, but collectively. It's not Intel lobbying the government, it's Intel plus Dell plus HP plus, all these names that you're very familiar with. They share their learnings about diversity initiatives. So Intel has been quite strong on diversity initiatives and unconscious bias, programs such as Women in Technology that you're involved in, Molly. All of these programs, Intel would share with other companies will share what they've learned, and we're just collectively trying to make it easier to get women into technology. We're trying to reach out to loads of different places. So one of the programs I really like that CWIT, actually there's two that CWIT has led. One of them is Teen Turn, and it's bringing girls from disadvantaged backgrounds who are transition year students and giving them a 2-week placement in a technology company. And those girls probably don't know anyone who's ever worked in technology, so they've no concept of what engineering is, what computing is. But they know they kind of like maths, or they kind of like science. And, hey, this is 2 weeks where I get paid, why not? And they come out of that 2-week internship and they know technology, they know what a tech job is. But not only do they know, they tell all their friends about it. So the power of that 2-week internship in all the different companies is amazing. The other one that's quite interesting is one that DCU teachers started with Accenture, and CWIT has taken on. Did we have a student teacher intern when you were there, Molly? Was Helen there?
There was two, Karen and Michael.
Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just went to go with one with them, actually. It was really
Yeah.
cool.
It's I love that program. So
Yeah.
that program is trying to educate teachers on what a technology or science career is. So teachers, National School and Secondary School, they do a full summer placement in a technology company, and they have to do something technical, which is brilliant. But the ethos behind it is, if you think of a teacher goes to school, they go to teacher training college where they do a work placement in a school, and then they go teaching. So they don't understand what a technical career looks like to be giving advice about it, or the examples if you're a science teacher to say, the reason you're learning this is. So Michael and Karen, for example, they left and they learned how to use the microbit like you. And they're like, I can do experiments. I can engage kids. I can think of lesson plans that will get my primary school kids interested in science and tech. And they're going to see me doing it. So they measure the impact of that. And it's, I think every teacher over the course of their lifetime, directly or indirectly, influences, I think it was like 5,000 people, like through their career. So Intel taking Mike and Karen, Helen the year before them. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on names for this year. But the impact is huge, and it's such a simple thing. So, they're the type of things CWIT does.
Yeah, no, that is such a good initiative. I remember that. And the influence they can have on young children is like incredible. Like everyone remembers that teacher that, the particular reason they've gotten into the technical degree they're in a lot of the time does come down to a particular teacher you had. I know that was my case anyway. Just one teacher that was like very inspiring from a technical point of view, and kind of like being like, oh, you can all do this. Like, this is something you can do. And I think, yeah, that's such a good initiative. Really cool to learn a bit about CWIT. So I'm sure people can look it up and learn more.
Please do. And actually, as undergrads, I'm going to totally self-see it. They do early careers outreach. So I think you can look at the website, but they do calls a bit like this, interviews with people in technology. If we do twice a year, I think, one of the multinational partners has a kind of an event where they get like really inspiring speakers in, and they have a theme. And because we're gone virtual now, it actually means that it's open to everyone. So look out. Some of those talks, the early careers talks, are amazing. And when you join a company, try to find out what they're doing with SUIT, because getting involved, I've learned so much from hearing from inspiring people. It's brilliant.
Yeah, no, definitely something we should all have a better look at. Sounds really cool. But I think we might finish up the call there just because we're kind of running out of time. But thank you so much for coming on. Some really honest words, some great advice we can all take on board. And it was so nice hearing about your story and your journey. Yeah, thank you for taking time. I'm sure you're very busy schedule, so your Friday evening is much appreciated.
No
Yeah,
problem.
great to catch up.
Absolutely. And yeah, let's catch up again soon, Molly. So
Yeah,
it's been great.
so much, Leah. Bye guys, that's it for today, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with the next speaker event. Bye.
Bye, Molly. Thanks.
Bye.